Okay, last time in The Human Condition, Hannah Arendt's book, we talked about her concept of labor. This time we're going to talk about the second human condition, which she talks about. It's called work. She says that the human condition of work is worldliness. Now, what does worldliness mean? Well, we have to understand it in the context of what Hannah Arendt means as world. She says, the Vita Activa, the human life insofar as it is actively engaged in doing something, is always rooted in a world of men and of man-made things, which it never leaves or altogether transcends. So if you remember last time we talked about labor, and labor was worldless because everything that it occupied itself with was consumed. There's nothing left over after the process of laboring. However, what's different about work is that after you work on something, there is a product at the end of it, and that product is in a world. And what Arendt is trying to say is that all of these products that we put into the world make us conditioned into the world. We reference those things. We kind of navigate our lives in reference to those things. For example, this iPhone that I'm filming this on, it is a product of work such that it allows me to do other work in the world. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be filming this video. This concept of world, Hannah Arendt says, is during the work process, everything is judged in terms of suitability and usefulness for a desired end and nothing else. The same standards and means and ends apply to the product itself. Thus, the reason why I have a phone is the means towards another end, that is, making videos. And making videos is a product insofar as it's a means towards an end of me pursuing philosophy. And so work or products that we put into the world are always caught in this referential totality of means and end, where the end is something that is ascribed value that is worth pursuing. Thus, the ontological nature of things that work puts into the world is such that it is useful towards something else. That's very important. Again, in labor, there is no world because things aren't useful. We only just consume them in order to sustain the life process. Arendt thinks the idea of usefulness and sustenance are two different things. Hannah Arendt says, Homer Faber, who is the agent of work, insofar as he is nothing but a fabricator and thinks in no terms but those of means and ends which arise directly out of his work and activity, is just as incapable of understanding meaning as the animal laborans is incapable of understanding instrumentality. What she's saying here is that the animal laborans, who is occupied with labor and sustaining life, has no concept of the idea of an instrument because it is only really engaged in consuming. And that same pattern of not having a reference to is the same with Homer Faber, who is always occupied with work. He's always building something as a means towards an end, but he can never build something into the world that is an end in itself. He cannot ascribe meaning in the way that he produces objects. So work is worldly insofar as it produces objects in the world, and those objects make up the world that we are. We make decisions that are conditioned on having those objects available or not, or how they reference to other objects that allow us to do things in the world. Quote, viewed as part of the world, the products of work guarantee the permanence and durability without which a world would not be possible at all. It is within the world of durable things that we find the consumer goods through which life assures the means of its own survival. So again, the things that we put into the world have some sort of durability. They last through time, and they are work products, and they condition our lives in the world only insofar as they're useful. Now, if you think of a chair, and all of a sudden, let's say someone stopped using the chair, it got rusty over time. If it got to a decrepit state such that it wasn't useful anymore, it wouldn't be considered an object in the world of work anymore. Now, if the ontological nature of things in the world of work is determined by its usefulness, or its reference to the totality of useful things in work, we can think of art as something that is an object that lasts over time, but is not in reference to that network of usefulness totality. The work of art is a work of art only insofar as it is not useful. Hannah Arendt thought poetry was the closest thing to thought and one of the most purest forms of art, only before it was written down on a piece of paper and it became a part of the material world. After a poem was put into anthologies and people read it and got certain meanings out of it, and it became, let's say, a piece within a tradition or a study, then it actually gained a thingly character to it. it actually became a product in the world because it became useful for people in ways such as maybe people wanted to write a dissertation, or maybe people wanted to have intellectual conversations about certain works of art. Once that happens, Hannah Arendt says, it actually becomes a product. It's because it's now referenced within the usefulness totality. Now, Hannah Arendt does recognize that the use case for work objects does mirror the consumption of labor products, and so she wants to make a difference. She says, use indeed does contain an element of consumption insofar as the wearing out process comes about through the contact of the use object with a living consuming organism. If one construes, for instance, the nature of use objects in terms of wearing apparel, he will be tempted to conclude that use is nothing but consumption at a slower pace. The way she gets around this is that the objects of work, or the products of work, aren't designed towards their durability, like labor is designed towards its consumption. Work is instead designed towards its usefulness, its value in reference to the totality of the world of work products. Hannah Arendt believed that Karl Marx, when he talked about labor being one of the key defining concepts of his theory, he confused the two, and this is what kind of led to him and his work come into contradiction. She says, the modern age in general, and Karl Marx in particular, overwhelmed, as it were, by the unprecedented actual productivity of Western mankind, had an almost irresistible tendency to look upon all labor as work, and to speak of the animal laborans in terms much more fitting for Homer Faber, hoping all the time that only one more step was needed to eliminate labor and necessity altogether. She continues, within a completely socialized mankind, whose sole purpose would be the entertaining of the life process, and this is unfortunately quite utopian ideal that guides Marx's theories, the distinction between labor and work would have completely disappeared. All work wouldn't have become labor because all things would be understood not in their worldly objective quality, but as the results of the living labor power and functions of the life process. So again, what Hannah Arendt is saying here is that Karl Marx is confusing the work product, whose value or its being, its ontological character, is determined by the usefulness within the network totality of useful products out there in the world, or what makes up the world, with labor power, which is the ability to produce. And Hannah Arendt believes that during the Industrial Revolution, work basically became a laborious activity. First, you had the craftsman who would be able to create, let's say, chairs, and he crafted them in a certain way, and he built the whole chair. However, in the Industrial Revolution, when the division of labor started to become a thing, one person didn't build the whole chair. Instead, they were put on an assembly line where they became laborers of the machines. The machines drove them instead of the craftsman driving the wood into the chair. Hannah Arendt says, we have changed work into laboring, broken it up into its minute particles until it has lent itself to division, where the common denominator of the simplest performance is reached in order to eliminate from the path of human labor power. Thus, we come to a similar conclusion as last time. Over time, especially after the Industrial Revolution and the modern period, labor has become the significant force in respect to work and action. Now, we haven't talked about action yet. We'll have a video about that next, but it's interesting to see how Hannah Arendt is interpreting the trends throughout history.